Yeah, see, I know nothing about baseball. And little large baseballs just to make blue games. That's very good. You either live to
Are you
learn.
today, or are you going to Sandy's?
You going to Sandy's?
Old Sandy's.
Yeah,
She rang it up.
she just got her floors done. She had me and Barrett come over and we moved everything for her. She's out parking now.
All right, let's go. By the way, she's what a Brewer struggle. I'll be nip and talk. Hey, the White Sox are so bad.
That's a good point. Yeah, should have been 20.
All right, so everybody got the summer assignment, extra credit, all that stuff. Okay, here's the thing for extra credit. If you get the extra credit in, take a picture of it. Oh, by the way, extra credit's got to be handwritten. This is my handwritten. But if you get it into me, take a picture of it, send it on Teams. I can try to get it in for a little bit extra credit if you want it on the third quarter. Get it to them on Teams during spring break. Sound good? If you give it to her on Monday, you'll have to be on fourth quarter. Sound good? All right. Okay. So, because I think we have to get grades in by Tuesday at noon. So it's really tight turnaround. So I won't have time, but I have enough time to get it in before Monday. I should really get. All right. So let's go ahead then. And what are we finishing? All my classes are off again. Oh, inauguration. Let's do it. So when on radio, I told you the story of Hoover being mad. So you missed, so you can't get it in early. Extra credit, if you get it to me before the end of spring break, you can get it in on third quarter. So we were here, right? Everyone's watching, and I played that little bit of a clip. So everyone's listening to Roosevelt. But what disease is Roosevelt catch? Polio. And what? What was his program called? Yeah, aggressive government action. And 32 was the worst. That was the worst. 32, 33, the worst year. So let's get right to. So people are listening, and his voice sounded so good on the radio. Patricia, but at the same time, kind of speaking down to people. Really. Just had this voice that people loved and respected. But there's one more thing. When he said, I'm going to take this like a war. Actions that were at war. People wanted to hear that the president was listening to their problems, realizing that there are people unemployed who want to work and they're suffering and terrified, and he's going to do something about it. Now, that only worked so far. You got to do something. But he said it. That's what they wanted to hear. The other thing is it was paralyzing. The banking system was collapsing. People had lost hope. He started his speech with one of the great lines in American political history. I'm going to read you that little bit of the speech in the same kind of attitude. I'm going to read it because I enjoy reading it. I like it so much that I hit it. Here we go. I found it again. But it is so hit the point. People were afraid, and it's saying, no, at times we have to realize we can get better, and together we will get out of this. And so he said, nor need we shrink from honestly facing the conditions of this country. It is time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So you've all heard that. I said to you, oh yeah, nothing fear but fear itself. My guess is most of you heard that. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. So people are absolutely convinced the country is falling apart. It looks like it is. And he's saying, no, that fear builds upon itself. We can get out. It's a great line. It's very memorable. if you go to Hyde Park in the presidential library, first ever presidential library, I've been to a lot of them. It's the best. It's the first. But it has about 3 different drafts of his speech. You see him right there. And it's really cool seeing how he tinkered with it. Even the speech he gave that day, there's little lines across that. He really, really knew how important this was. And then he said, have hope. And then he gave people the enemies. He said, yeah, we're all in this together, but there are certain people and certain attitude that led us to this depression. And we can't let them do it again. And he uses a little bit of a biblical reference because he knew that would play well in the United States of 1933. The money changers have fled from their seats, from their high seats in the temple of our civilization. Speculators, investment bankers, those who brought the stock market down. Well, let me finish. We may now restore that temple to the ancient truths. The measure of that restoration lies in the extent to which we apply social values more noble than mere monetary profit. Greed is what did it. Greed is what caused our problems, he's saying. Happiness lies not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement, in the thrill of creative effort. The joy and moral stimulation of work no longer must be forgotten in the mad chase of profits. These dark days will be worth all they cost if they teach us that our true destiny is not to be ministered unto, but to minister to ourselves and our fellow men. We can do better than this. This greed and those at the top who did everything for money and power. It's hard to imagine a politician speaking that way. There's a few. Certainly, I can't imagine a president. I can only see one president in my lifetime talking. That was Lyndon Johnson. That gives you an idea how long ago that was. We're talking 1960s. And so it's a totally different era. But he's saying, we can get out of this. They did it, and sure, that chase of profit, we can do better as a society. Really talented speech. And when he got done, the reaction was overwhelming. It's something to be his grandson. Pressure on him. He loves Roosevelt. Listen. He couldn't think of what to say. He loved Roosevelt so much he said we can kiss his toenails. Which I think it's pretty cool. So the first crisis was banking. And just get down this financial crisis. Because if the financial system collapses, it might all be over. And he knows this. It's a little like Lincoln coming right into the middle of a disaster, a train wreck, and you take office. You know, I got the job I want. Oh, I got the job I want. He's facing his depositors at TVs. That's guns. Okay, they passed an emergency banking. Now, there wasn't enough time for this emergency banking bill to really change the banking system. He had to get people to believe that there'll be a bank there tomorrow, so don't panic today. This was the big deal. Bank panics, there's no longer thinking. He had to convince people your bank is safe. How did he do it? Here. Fireside chats. Fireside chats. Everyone write down fireside chat. Spoke on the radio. This newsreel. He's an author, so away with the word. Caress. This is true. Roosevelt treated people like they're smart. He didn't talk down to them. He had that gift. They're together. It's brilliant. I love people sitting around watching the radio. Did it work? It worked. It worked. I do like that picture of Roosevelt and Hoover. That's pretty clever from New Yorker magazine. So we're getting to what's called the first New Deal. And Roosevelt understood there was a honeymoon period. The president is popular when they're first elected. He was really popular, but he had to do something. And people wanted action. It's amazing how much to this day, people want action. There's a reason why some presidents are talented at it and they start doing things. I mean, if you paid attention to what President Trump did, there was no new laws, but he signed executive order after executive order. Some had impact, some didn't do anything, but he was always signing something. Why? I'm doing something. Now, down the road, it better do something. You can argue the effectiveness, obviously, when we actually can see it. So, first 100 days, 13 major bills. 13 major bills. Now, this would become known as the alphabet soup, because all of these agencies are going to have an acronym. Give me one sec. We're gonna have some kind of acronym. You see that little table? It's a clever cartoon. Roosevelt had the doctor of New Deal remedies, Congress doing it, and all the different acronyms. There's a few we got to know. I'm sorry, that's why. But he would try and experiment. And he understood that the people wanted action. And you could always go back and change it or adjust it. Now, people will lose patience, but he understood, therefore, it's a limited amount of time. So I mentioned Lyndon Johnson might be another president who would talk like that. He would pass over 1,000 bills, push him through Congress. No president like Lyndon Johnson. He got even more bills passed. Why? I got limited time. I'm going to get stuff done. And some were great. Some they had some issues. So his goal, though, was to save capitalism. Save capitalism. So he was from that tradition of the populists and the progressives. Capitalism was a good thing, but it needs its rough edges to be sanded off, to be hewed. And he would dub this liberal. He would dub this progressive populist program. He was much like the old populists. Remember the Omaha Black Hole in 1892? That was liberal. So when I say liberal economics, that's where it comes from. Liberal foreign policy comes from Franklin Roosevelt. Now, from day one, his opponents are going to call him a communist or a red or a Bolshevik. Sometimes they would call him a fascist too, which is hilarious. It's like calling somebody the short, tall person, but contradiction. But that's where the term liberal would come from. And eventually that whole thing about calling them communists and not real Americans would eventually begin to wear on the term liberal. Well, the first big bill would be called the Civilian Conservation.
little bit.
So we got this, so you get the cartoons. Same deal, it gave hope that people thought it was getting better. The brain trust for its advisors. Here's the first, I'm gonna show you one little bit. The first one, CCC. CCC, see it right there. There was huge unemployment between 17 and 22. So the CCC, so everyone got that? It would go out, they put them in surplus World War I Army uniforms, Army tents, and they would go out to national park. They said restore. What it really meant is they would improve national forests like campsites. If you ever been to Lewis and Clark Caverns to go through the caves, that path you go through was made by the CCC. And just this summer, I went to the gates of the mountains. And Meriwether campsite, for example, I just walking up, took a little hike up there, that trail, that campsite, CCC. Go through Yellowstone National Park. The beginnings of everything in there, Yellowstone National Park, was CCC. So they did a lot. It's relatively small, but it had great impact. And they just the feeling like he's doing something. That was still so many more unemployed. And there would be a little bit of direct aid. We're going to jump right through that though. We don't need to know every program, but let's get one more. Don't worry about, we have this, don't worry about this. Everyone put down the NRA. And it was a failed program, the National Recovery Act, or the National Recovery Administration. And they thought they could coordinate production, just like they did in World War I with the War Productions Board. And they would coordinate all costs. The idea was if we coordinate, it'll get rid of excesses and therefore drop unemployment. We don't need to know any details about this, except for it failed miserably. It was too complex and it collapsed under its own weight. The symbol of it was the blue eagle. That's an eagle. The blue, how about let's go with eagle? Everyone knows the NRA, that's a symbol of the NRA. We do our part. But just like it failed in World War I, it failed here too. And then eventually the Supreme Court would find it unconstitutional. So that was the first, everyone got the NRA down? Let's go to some ones that had much longer lasting impact. There's, I would look back, me personally, I think there's some good ideas in it. Just two covers. But this one we need, the AAA, the Agricultural Adjustment Act. So the farm economy was in tatters. This yellow line here is the percentage of farms that are foreclosing, and it was nearly 10% by 1933. That's how bad the farm economy was, meaning small farms were just being dissolved. The AAA realized the problem was overproduction. And, oh, there's FDR put a new coat of paint on it. And it would pay farmers not to grow. Remember I told you about overproduction, prices drop, and they overproduce more to try to get themselves out of the hole, making it worse. Okay, don't produce, we'll pay you not to produce, and then the payments end when prices begin to go up again. And it was a very clever way. A very clever way to get out of this problem. I forgot what they call it, farm parity prices, all this kind of complex stuff. But it had an immediate impact. The number of farms being foreclosed began to drop dramatically. And coincided with banks also surviving. But that's another two reasons for that. But the way they funded it would be found unconstitutional also. Next, the TVA, or the Tennessee Valley Authority. And this is going to be a massive program to build dams and hydroelectricity on the Tennessee and Cumberland River. So we're talking dams all through this area, over